Hey, hello. First things first, I am back home in Illinois outside of my LA apartment. Decided to social distance with my family. Just wanted to say off the bat, I hope you're doing well and coping with this time. If you're someone who still has to go out and go to work, I commend you. I'm thinking about you. I hope the past couple of weeks are treating you okay. I know it's been tough on everyone, some much more than others, and I'm thinking about you. Personally, I've done quite a bit of reading while social distancing in my basement, basically. And I think I have found what is quickly becoming an annual trend for me that I have no complaints about. If you know me at all, you know that queer books are my favorite kind of books. And so that's the large majority of what I read anyway. I read a lot of amazing queer books. But I've been thinking, just in the past few years, there's always one super standout gay romance book every year for me that really just hits differently from all the others. Often is my favorite book of the year. In 2016, I read You Know Me Well by David Levithan and Nina LaCour. In 2017, I read Call Me By Your Name for the first time in preparation for the movie. Ruined my life. In 2018, I read What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. 2019, do I even need to say it? We got Red, White, and Royal Blue, totally out of left field, by Casey McQuiston. I didn't even consider at this point that there was like a theme going on in my reading, because I was just reading queer books all the time, and a lot of them had romances, but this is different. These books are different. Sometimes a book spikes up on your TBR for no reason, and you just tell yourself, it's time to read this one. And that's what happened with this book. It's been on my radar for a minute, but I didn't think I'd be reading it so soon and so quickly. That book is Like a Love Story by Abdi Nizamian. This book came out last year. It's the first book of Abdi's that I've read. He's the author of this book called The Walk-In Closet. He's also a film producer. He happens to be an associate producer on the Call Me By Your Name movie. I will get back to that. He's written for several TV shows. He's a film and TV person through and through, and now has this gorgeous novel that I really hope changes his life from here on out, because this book needs to go places. It already has, and it will. I am not the fastest reader. I mean, I am always reading, but I like to take breaks. I usually don't read more than a chapter or two at a time, just because I get very impatient as a reader. It's frustrating for me, but I work through it. This was one of those books where I could sit and read chapter after chapter after chapter. The cover is absolutely beautiful. I got this book at the Strand in New York City. A trusted friend recommended and then immediately bought it for me. Like, you need to have this book in your life. I was like, okay, the cover's gorgeous. It's queer. Takes place in the 80s. A friendship love story, which I also have a super soft spot for. And a gay love story. I'm in. Bottom of the TBR, like, to be seen again in 6 years. But no. Reasons that I cannot describe brought me to this book right now when I needed it most. If you're unfamiliar, Like a Love Story follows 3 main characters, alternates between their first-person perspectives, with a special chapter thrown in between them. The main character is Reza. His family has just moved from Toronto to New York City. He is Iranian. His mom has married someone new. They're hoping for a better life. Reza's nervous about his new life, but mostly nervous because he is gay. It's 1989. They obviously don't have the treatment that they do now, but ACT UP is in full force. Reza is convinced that as a gay person, he will get AIDS. He's just afraid for his life on all counts. Another main character is Judy. She goes to the same school as Reza, and so we meet her and find out that she has an uncle who has AIDS and is a huge activist, and also a gay best friend named Art, who is another one of the main characters. He is a huge activist. He's a photographer, rebel with unsupportive parents. So Reza meets Judy and Art. They both kind of have a crush on him. They invite him to one of Judy's uncles, Steven's, movie nights, and Art sort of takes him and flirts with him a little bit, which Reza loves, but is way too ashamed to admit and pushes Art away and ends up dating Judy. So things get really complicated when Reza has feelings for Art, Art has feelings for Reza, and Reza is dating Judy. Judy has huge feelings for Reza, but has no clue that he's actually gay and in love with her best friend. So this book is loaded with wisdom of friendship and relationships and love. So much history in this book, we get to see the ACT UP meetings that they're going to. Art is always photographing these protests, and so it is so fascinating to read about those events that are fictionalized, but based in really deep research and through the eyes of someone so young and experiencing his own history firsthand. A huge part of this book is Madonna. I admittedly, I'm a Gen Zer. I don't appreciate Madonna in the way that I probably should. And because of this book, I do a hell of a lot more now. Abdi really got me when, right before the last chapter, there's quotes a little bit throughout, and the final one is from Lady Gaga. I was like, you got me. Keith Haring is referenced in this book several times. Just so much art, so much pop culture from the 80s, and so much queerness is present here that is just so wonderful. It was equal parts me being like, I can't believe he's talking about that, and I love that so much, and that these fictional characters are getting the sense of community that if I were a child in the 80s in high school and experiencing this, I would hope so much to have a figure like Steven in my life, and equal parts educational. I mean, there's deep references to queer films and pop culture movie stars. Madonna's Like a Prayer album comes out. So between reading, I was playing the full album. I was like, oh yes, I remember the Oh Father music video. Literally studied that in film school because it was directed by David Fincher. I don't want to spoil things in this video, but I will say at this point, if you've not read it and I haven't convinced you, please just go read this book. You will feel so good. The writing is clever and stunning. The way New York is depicted, the way high school friendships and relationships. I just have so much love for stories that explore the friendship between gay men and the women in their lives, especially their friends who are their peers. There's so much to dive into there, and when a book does it well, I appreciate it so much. This book explores that dynamic beautifully, especially when there is this extra conflict there that ends up being a really, really sweet love story. That's what this book really does well for me. Never have I ever thought a YA novel belonged on a Broadway stage more than I do with this one. For real. This book was just an extra layer of refreshing to read because I've been blessed in my reading time with so many modern queer stories that don't deal with AIDS. And you see some that do in a totally nuanced way, like Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan, but to have that presence and that voice of Steven really gave this story an extra layer of authenticity and realness. This is a figure in their lives who didn't live through something 30 years ago and teach his lessons. He's living through it now, and he's suffering the consequences, and he's teaching the young people in his life about acceptance, about love, about their history, and about what they need to do moving forward. And it's just so clear reading it that they did and they will. I'm the first person to say we don't need more sad gay stories, and that's just so not what this is. It just has that authenticity to it because it's happening in this white hot time in our history. It's one thing to read and celebrate those books today, which I'll never stop doing. I'll never stop reading Adam Silvera and Red, White, and Royal Blue and all of those fantastic queer books that we get because of this time. And I'll also never stop reading Giovanni's Room and everything else James Baldwin has written, and Audre Lorde and Torch Song Trilogy and everything else. This book to me just sits right in the middle. Is the kind of reading experience I wasn't expecting at all. Reading this book, I at one point took the time to realize that these kids are in high school in the 80s. They're baby boomers. They're my parents, which just I couldn't keep thinking that because reading it, they're just me. They're just like me. Maybe I was, in the GSA in high school and I can call myself an activist and I can go into the women's marches, but I'll never know what that was like to feel like I was going to die because of who I am. This book really, really put that in perspective, and not in a way that haunts me, not in a way that makes me go to bed sad, just in a way that makes me respect and celebrate queerness in a whole new level. Have I convinced you to read this book yet? Okay. Well, if not, I did read it on my Kindle, and I'm going to go through some of my notes, some of the things I highlighted, because I had some favorite lines. Because the writing in this book, while this loads, I said I was going to come back to Call Me By Your Name. And I love when this happens, when I know that someone's affiliated with some other story or something else, and then you see little hints of it in their own work. Love that. There was some good, like, I said his name or he said my name moments in this book that just, I couldn't help but think it was a little bit of a wink to Call Me By Your Name. I don't know where he was in the filmmaking process at this time. I don't know how involved he was, but it was clear to me. They never call each other by their own names, like that would be too obvious, but they do say each other's names, Art and Reza, when they end up together, which they obviously do. This is something that comes up a couple times. Stephen has these note cards for Art that he gives him about queerness and queer history, and we see some of those cards in between the chapters, which is just like such a perfect touch. One of them is love, and he's talking about their history and says that the most important four-letter word in our history will always be love. That's what we're fighting for. That's who we are. Love is our legacy. I highlighted that, and then it came back later in a much sadder scene in the book. Oh my god, I don't even want to say when this happens and how it happens, just in case there's anyone here who hasn't read this book yet, but when the title is said, like a love story, and where that comes from, and just, I was on an airplane when I read that line, and my mouth dropped. For real. So beautiful. I thought Judy and Reza's first date at St. Mark's Place was just really, really sweet. We knew that it was doomed, but reading it from Judy's perspective rather than Reza's, so we had like that swooning feeling in the writing. It's always so nice. When Art and Reza are together, Art says, what if this isn't the beginning of us, but just a continuation of something that started a long time ago? Reza says before that, we're becoming one. Or perhaps I'm becoming him. I long to be him to escape myself and crawl into the safety of his skin. Oh, this is why these fucking love stories they just get to me. Shame is their weapon. People who feel shame remain hidden, and that's exactly how they want us. And then along comes Madonna. This is from one of those like in-between note cards that we get to read from Stephen. So that's just a few glimpses into why this book has absolutely changed my life. That's extreme, but I love this book so much. It's gonna be hard to top this year, and that's why I'm claiming it right now. Although the book that I'm going straight into, which I've been warned about, and I don't know if it's a good idea for me to go from one experience like this into another, but I just started reading A Little Life for the first time. I'm one chapter in, and so far my only feeling is like trying to keep up with the characters. I'm sure it'll get easy. Guys, this book has just done a number on me. I've been sitting down here for the past week just absolutely devouring it. So those are my thoughts on Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian. I really hope you decide to pick it up if you haven't already, but if you have, please leave me a comment and let me know what you thought. I would love to discuss with you in the comments or anywhere else. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. All my links are below. My name is Tiernan. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, don't touch your fucking face, and have a good one.